Hello students, let's continue with the chapter we started. It's the Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. We just read by now that Nelson Mandela was getting nostalgic about the days of struggle. He was remembering the sacrifices made by the African patriots for the country. He was sharing the credit of that particular achievement with all. He was filled with a sense of pain that he was not able to thank all the martyrs who had made supreme sacrifices for the emancipation of South Africa. They had done a lot, but they were not alive to see the outcome of their sacrifices. The great day they failed to witness. It was the day when the first democratic non-racial government was being installed. It was the day of the inauguration. Let's continue. I have marked it red where we have to start today. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. That entire discriminative policy left a deep and lasting wound in his country and his people. All of us will spend many years and not generations recovering from that a profound hurt. He says that hurt given by this apartheid policy was so deep that it would take them many years to come out of the pains, fine, to come out of the consequences of that. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect. Despite the hurt caused to the country and the people, this entire span, this entire period of oppression, of exploitation and brutality and cruelty, had given birth to something that had not even been intended by the oppressor. That was something as the byproduct of this entire span of exploitation. What was that? That was that it produced Oliver Chambers, the Walter Cecilius, the Chief Lutilius, the Yusuf Dadus, the Pram Fischer, the Robert Subuquis of our time. So he is just finding out a blessing in disguise. Sometimes even bad times lead to certain good things. As the impact of that entire era of exploitation, the positive thing about that entire era of exploitation and brutality was that it had given birth to some great men of extraordinary courage, valor and wisdom and generosity, and this was an asset created for the country that their like may never be known again. He believed that such people would never come on the planet again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. He seems to be believing that the great people are not born, they get created as the result of the circumstances, and it requires the depth of the oppression. The harder the times are, the greater the people are. So this is the concept being shared here, that it requires depth of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. So he is talking about the prosperity, the geographical prosperity of the country, that it is rich in minerals and many precious stones that are lying under the soil. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people. He is just holding that manpower is of more importance than any other wealth. The greatest wealth is its people, he believes, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. Yes. Human resource is the most precious resource of any country. The same is being here shared with us by Nelson Mandela. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. He admits that from his friends, from his comrades at the time of struggle, he learned an important lesson of courage. He also learned the meaning of courage, rather. Time and again I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. He remembers that it has happened many a time in history that men and women just stood up and they risked their lives for a cause, for a social cause. I have seen men stand up to to attacks and torture without breaking. He says that he had experienced in his life that many people standing up to the attacks and the torture without breaking up, without giving in to the circumstances. They showed a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. Resilience is the capacity of coming out of the difficult times and staying strong at the time of difficult times. It is the ability to face the hardships and without letting impacted by its outcomes. So he has seen such people showing resilience, showing strength, and such resilience that defies the imagination, that one's imagination cannot even think of. Defies means disobeys. Fine, that doesn't fit the range of the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. He learned an important lesson. He learned an important definition of courage. He learned that courage was not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. One who wins over the courage, when one who wins over the fear is courageous, not one who doesn't have fear. So winning over fear is important. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Conquering the fear is important. Coming triumphant is important. Winning over the fear is important. Absence of fear is not being courageous. Being courageous is winning over fear. So this was something important he learned throughout his struggle. No one is born hating another person because of the color of the skin or his background or his religion. So he just believes in the inherent goodness of all the human beings. He believes that all the human beings, when they come on this planet, they are basically good. They are good in nature by birth, but circumstances make them bad. Upbringing make them bad. Upbringing makes them bad. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. He believes that those people who hate others, they have learned this art of hatred, this thing of hatred. Hatred is not their innate quality. It's not their inborn quality. So when he says when people can learn to hate, they can be taught to love as well. They are receptive for both the sentiments. So if love is taught to them, then they learn love. If hatred is served to them, then they learn hatred. So here he is just giving us a message that whatever you throw to the society, the same thing comes back. For love comes more naturally the human heart than its opposite. He finds that love has more potential of influencing the human hearts, because the basic nature of human beings is love. Hatred is artificial, love is natural. Hatred is man-made, love is spontaneous, it's God-made. Even in the grimmest times in prison, he remembers the days when he was in prison. Even in the hardest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits. It means when we were exploited to the extent of the oppression. When just we were made to suffer a load that we couldn't even bear. Even our limits of tolerance were tested. I would see even during those hard times, even at the time of the direst of crisis, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards. He says that he could see a glimpse of humanity in one of the guards guarding them outside the prison. Perhaps just for a second he could see, but there was a seed, and if that seed was watered with love, that could sprout into a sapling and then into a tree. But it was enough to reassure me. This particular glimpse that he could see was enough to reassure me, to make him believe and keep him going with the idea that love was stronger than hatred. Man's goodness is a flame. He believed that every man has some goodness in his heart, and that is a kind of flame that can be hidden but never extinguished, that remains there. If given an opportunity to come out, that'll come out with its all brightness and shine. It can never be extinguished. The flame of goodness is burning in every heart. It may not be visible to some people. It may not be visible and identified by some people, but it remains there somewhere in the depths of the heart. It never extinguishes. It just needs a right kind of approach to rekindle it, to just make it alive, and it should be given an opportunity so that it can make its presence felt. So goodness is there in every heart. Moving on, you can just go through this oral comprehension check on your own. It would be a feedback for you to check yourself whether you comprehended the things or not, or you can approach me if there is help required. In life, every man has twin obligations. Nelson Mandela believes that every human being has two obligations, two responsibilities in life. One is the obligation to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. So this twin obligation he speaks of. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations. When one lives in an ideal society that is civil and that is humane, everybody can fulfill these two obligations. But in a country like South Africa, where there was racial discrimination, where apartheid policy was there, where blacks were discriminated against by the whites, in a country like South Africa, the scenario was altogether different. It was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. He belonged to the blacks, so for the blacks it was quite difficult to fulfill both the obligation towards family and the obligation towards society. So he is remembering the times how his mind shifted towards fulfilling his obligations towards the country. It was not that he belonged to a poor family, that he didn't have resources, and he himself was the one of the worst sufferers of the blacks. No, but there were certain circumstances which led him towards becoming a rebellion, becoming a freedom fighter. Let's see. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. See, the black who attempted to live as a human being. A human being means who attempted to live with freedom, to enjoy all the basic rights of the human beings. He was punished and isolated by the whites. Isolated means he was kept separate from the mainstream line. He was alienated by the society. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family. Anybody who tried to fight for the society, who tried to fight for the causes of the people, was inevitably, it was bound to happen. Inevitable means that is bound to happen, that cannot be avoided. Ripped from his family. Ripped from means separated from his family forcefully and his home, and was forced to live a life apart, a life of secrecy, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. It means the freedom fighters those days, they had to work in secrecy. It was not a bright existence of theirs. They were living a twilight existence. Twilight means not so bright. Twilight is the time of the sunset. So they had to keep their identity hidden. They had to work their mission in secrecy, and they were termed rebellions. They were the rebellions, the protesters who were fighting against the white supremacy. They had to live a life of rebellion, like you must have seen in movies dacoits, a rebellion, rebelling against the force in power. I didn't in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. He admits that initially as a child he was confined to his family. His priority was limited to his family only, but in attempting to serve my people, but gradually when he made an effort to serve his society, he found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, as a brother, as a father and a husband. So when he joined the social cause, he realized that it would be difficult for him to fulfill his obligation towards his family, because one could either fight for the society or fulfill one's obligations towards the family. This was the sacrifice that social service required, that becoming a freedom fighter required. I was not born with a hunger to be free. So this hunger to be free, this desire, this craving to be free was not inborn in him. I was born free. free in every way that I could know. He says that as a child he was extremely free, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear streams, rivers that ran through my village, free to roast maize under the stars. Roast maize means roasting grain. It's a kind, millet is a kind of grain, bajra we say, under the stars, and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. So he could enjoy all these childhood games, and he had all the privileges as a child has. As long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe, the particular tribe means a chain of families, a particular chain of families. As long as he obeyed his father, he just abided by, he obeyed, he just fulfilled and went by the customs of his tribe. He was not troubled by the laws of man or God. He led a peaceful life, he led a free life. Neither the laws of man troubled him, nor the laws of God troubled him. It means neither the nature troubled him, nor white supremacy troubled him. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, gradually when he grew up, he could see that there was discrimination on the basis of the color of the skin. Though that discrimination was not that much in the tribe he belonged to, he as a child he had never felt those glimpses of the discrimination and the bias and the prejudice. But when he grew up, he realized that the freedom he had enjoyed as a child was just an illusion, was just a farce, was fake, was just artificial. It seemed to be a freedom, it was not freedom. When I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, when he grew up, he realized that at certain levels there was discrimination on the basis of the skin. Then his hunger aroused, his inquisitiveness to become free in the real sense arouse. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. Initially, he kept the desire of freedom confined to himself. He wanted every kind of equality for him. The transitory freedoms, that is the transitory freedom means momentary freedom, like a young person wants to go out, enjoy movies. He doesn't want any restriction and any check on him of being able to stay out at night, read what I please and go where I choose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I desired for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential. Then his concept of freedom broadened, his horizon of freedom broadened. He wanted to achieve his entire potential, his entire strength he wanted to explore, his entire talent he wanted to explore. He wanted to earn his keep. My keep here means bread and butter, livelihood, sustenance, living. Of marrying, he wanted to marry as per his own choice. He wanted to have a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. He wanted to live a life of a lawful citizen. He didn't want any obstruction. But gradually, then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. So that desire for freedom, it got broadened, and he started feeling that he should fight not only for his individual freedom, but also for the freedom of his brothers and sisters of his caste and creed. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed. Curtailed means restricted, that was cut short, that was reduced in size. But the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. Looked like means he is pointing towards the discrimination on the basis of the skin, color of the skin. This is when I joined the African National Congress. This was the platform he just jumped into and become a rebel. And that is when the hunger for my freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of the country, of the people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity. He wanted his people to live their life with dignity and self-respect that animated his life, that made his life lively, that transformed a frightened young man. As a child, he was a frightened young man into a bold one, into a courageous one who had the power and strength to fight and raise the voice against the discrimination. Then drove a law-abiding attorney. He was a law-abiding attorney. Attorney means lawyer. He was an advocate who obeyed the law, law-abiding, to become a criminal. And he finally, every rebel is considered a criminal. Fine. that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. He had to live the life of a monk like a man of religion who gets alienated from the society, who lives in the jungle and lives a life of secrecy. So he had to live a life of a monk. I'm no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man. He doesn't find himself to be special. He doesn't find himself to be virtuous. Virtuous means good natured, kind natured, and self sacrificing. Then the next man, he finds himself equal to all other freedom fighters. But I found that I couldn't even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms. But the thing that was different about him is that he couldn't enjoy the limited freedom and the poor version of freedom he was allowed. And when I knew my people were not free, so this hurt him, this caused him pain, this kindled a feeling of rebellion in his heart. Freedom is indivisible. He believed that freedom is same for all. Freedom should not be, the concept of freedom should not be divided amongst the people on the basis of certain parameters which are superficial, which do not have any sense. Everybody should have freedom. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. He felt if there was a single person who was not free, it means he was not free. He shared the problems of all his people. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. So this way he just found it to be a collective issue, and he made the suffering of his people his own personal suffering. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. And this particular line tells that Nelson Mandela had a soft corner towards the people who were oppressing them, who were brutal, who were cruel, who discriminated. He had a dint of sympathy, not for the people who were oppressed, but also for the people who were oppressors, because he saw inherent goodness in all the people, and he believed that every bad person must have been good someday. And these were the circumstances, these were the lack of knowledge that made them become bad. So he found that oppressor was as as chained, as imprisoned as an oppressed person was. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. A person who is oppressed is imprisoned into the physical prison, physical trap. But a man who is oppressor, he is also a prisoner of certain negative sentiments. A person who is curtailing others' freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is also locked behind some invisible bars of prejudice, discrimination. Narrow-mindedness means orthodox thinking, conservative thinking. If the whites used to think that blacks were inferior, they were also trapped somewhere in their narrow-mindedness. They also needed to be released from their narrow-mindedness. Such was the greatness Nelson Mandela possessed. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom. I am equally pained. I am equally imprisoned if I am taking away someone's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. So it was equal for both the cases. Both were entrapped, the oppressor as well as the oppressed. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. Both are the victims of the circumstances. Oppressor's humanity has also been robbed of if the oppressed freedom is robbed of. Fine. So this was the beautiful chapter. This was the entire explanation of the chapter. Nelson Mandela, Long March to Freedom. He shares a beautiful concept of philosophy towards the end, where he sees inherent goodness in all the souls. He finds all the souls being pure in their very basic nature, if there are some people who have turned out to be bad due to certain circumstances in life, he feels a kind of sympathy for them. He wants them to come out of their imprisonment. They are also imprisoned. They are imprisoned into the chains behind the bars of certain negative emotions which are dominating their humanity, which is there inside, because he feels that goodness is a kind of flame burning in everybody's heart. And this goodness, this flame of goodness, perhaps it may be invisible for certain time, it may be hidden for a while, but it cannot be extinguished and given a proper behavior, shown a proper response. It will always come out and reflect visibly. Fine. I hope you just understood everything about this chapter. So I'm just going to take a leave of you here. If there is any problem you confront while you just read the chapter on your own, and just try to relish what Nelson Mandela had to say in this chapter. If there is any query, you are always welcome. You can share your queries on the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. Take a good care of yourself and revise the chapter in between the lines. Thanks.